into my 5th year as a real estate agent, it means I've spoken to a lot of home buyers. And a lot, I mean a lot of home buyers. And a good portion of my business that I do is helping out-of-state folks move to New Hampshire and make that switch from going from one state to another, and it can be pretty extreme of a switch. So in today's video, I'm gonna be going over the top 5 questions I get about what to expect in New Hampshire, kind of how New Hampshire is, what New Hampshire is, and how some certain things work. It's going to be a little bit all over the place, but going to be going over 5 common questions. So we'll go right into that now. Hi and welcome to my channel. My name is Shane Moynihan. I'm a local real estate agent and investor based out of Keene, New Hampshire. If you're looking to buy, sell, or invest in real estate, just feel free to reach out to me. My contact info is right below in the description, or you can even write down there, there's a link for a buyer's consultation. You can just click the link, schedule a 30-minute call, and we can connect and see how I can help you. And in today's video, like I said, I'm going over the top 5 questions I get from mainly out-of-state buyers looking to move to New Hampshire, because of course New Hampshire is a small state. A lot of people, if they visited here, they've only went for certain things, so they haven't really explored the state. And it's not made for everyone, but of course there's some great enticing features of New Hampshire that makes people want to make that move. So without further ado, let's get into those 5 questions right now. So the first question I'm going to jump into is one that probably everyone has if they're looking to move from another state up to New Hampshire. And that's, why are property taxes so high? Because if you're moving really from anywhere, but especially a southern state, I've noticed, if you move to New Hampshire, you're going to see your taxes basically at least 6x, if not more, because the average tax bill for New Hampshire is right around, I believe it was $6,000 per year. And it is definitely a big jump from most things. Like I said, down south, you will have some property taxes that are $800 a year. Going to $6,000 a year is very extreme. But the reason we have such high property taxes is because we don't have state income tax or have state sales tax. So therefore, the state relies so heavily on property taxes for the local funding, for all the roads, the schools, everything, that we get really hit hard on the property tax aspect. The nice thing, of course, is that, well, you're not getting income tax from the state, and when you go to the store and check something out, unless it's prepared food, well, guess what? You're gonna pay the price that's on the actual price tag, and you're not gonna get taxed on it. Now there is, I think, 7% tax on prepared food, but I think that's nationwide, so that's just that. But on regular things, no sales tax, which is awesome. The second most common question I probably get is when people are looking from out of state, again, they're not used to New Hampshire, so they're asking, well, where are all the new houses? And New Hampshire just has been lacking new housing since the 1980s, I was reading online the other day. We've always been kind of behind the 8 ball on building houses. In 2022, New Hampshire ranked 38th in housing development. We were only building 7.4 new houses that were being authorized per 1,000 existing homes. So we do not build a ton of new homes up here. There are some condo developments and things happening around, but for single families, it's kind of just when a builder finds a good piece of land and wants to make a new house on it. Like, we don't have as much expansion as some of these other states, especially out west where a ton of development's happening. We're kind of lacking on that. So we don't have a ton of new houses. A lot of homes you're going to see, especially if you're going to be looking in like these smaller towns and you want to be kind of in a downtown, like a Keene, a Peterborough, Milford, New Hampshire, these like smaller towns that aren't huge but still have things actually in their downtown, like restaurants and stores. Well, a lot of those houses, they were built in the late 1800s, early 1900s. A ton of them are just old homes. Both of my rental properties are built in the 1870s. So that's just what it's going to be, and you kind of have to understand what you're getting into with that. Now, of course, there are newer houses, but even things like, I always joke around with my clients, if you see it built after 1980, it's still a pretty new house in New Hampshire. Third question we're going to touch base on is, how bad are winters? And I'll be honest with you, winters can absolutely stink in New Hampshire. We can get hit really, really hard some years. In other years, it's really not that bad. Over time, the average snowfall for New Hampshire is 87 inches per year, which is over 7 feet of snow. Now again, New Hampshire kind of like our winters really span. Sometimes we get front loaded with a lot of snow in the beginning of winter. Like our winter can start in October and it can usually end in April-ish, maybe May-ish. But this year, well, guess what? Yeah, winter started around November, but we didn't actually see really a true snowstorm until probably the middle of January. We had days of the week of Christmas that were hitting the like low 60s. That's crazy for a December time in New Hampshire, but we definitely got hit later. Like we've had in the last 2 weeks, we've had 4 snowstorms and we've gotten hit pretty hard since then. So New Hampshire's definitely a way to play it around because we do get hit pretty hard. You are most likely going to need your own type of transportation. If you're coming from a southern state, I recommend getting an all-wheel drive or four-wheel drive car. If you've never driven in the snow, that will help a lot. And get some good tires so that you're not sliding around on all the ice and snow that's out there. The next one we're going to touch base on is how are the schools in New Hampshire? And for the schools, New Hampshire was actually ranked 5th best for public schools and number 1 for average pupil to teacher ratio, coming in at just 12-1. So New Hampshire does have good schools, but they're very small schools. Like the school I went to was combined with 2 towns, Wilton and Limeboro. In my graduating class in high school, I think we had like 48 or 52 kids. So it's very small schools around here. Of course, if you're going to be in the bigger cities like Manchester, Nashua, Concord, even Keene, you're going to have more people in your school. But I mean, if you're in one of the smaller kind of towns like that, you're going to have smaller schools and they do lack some things sometimes. Like my school had to offer certain classes from the school over in the next town because they had more stuff culinary wise, mechanic wise, and even sports wise that we didn't have over in our school because we were just too small. Like we didn't even have a football team. We were lucky to have the basketball team filled out with roster spots. So like it was just smaller, but it was still good education. But of course, I can't really compare. I only went to one high school. I liked it. I did well, but who knows? Now, the 5th question we're going to wrap it up on is probably the hardest question I get, and that's what's a good place to move to in New Hampshire? Well, I'm not you, so I can't answer that question because, well, every location's going to have things someone likes and someone absolutely hates. So I really think, like, of course, if you call me, we talk, I can give you suggestions about what you're telling me and be like, hey, this could be a good area to look into, but you definitely want to like go visit it, maybe spend a day or 2 there, go to the downtown, actually see how it feels before you just start looking at houses and commit to a location. Because again, New Hampshire is a small town state, meaning that, well, things are pretty far apart. Like for me the other day, I wanted to go to Costco because I needed spices. Just spices. They have a certain spice I like. Well, I had to drive an hour and a half down to Nashua to go get spices. Now, I made it a round trip, got some dinner, and did some other things. But there's some things that you're going to have to haul a decent amount for if you're in a smaller town that's not necessarily in an area with a bunch of population and a bunch of stores. Because when you're in these smaller towns, you still might have to drive 25 minutes to the closest grocery store, but to go to the closest Walmart, well, that's 45 minutes. So it's definitely basing around what you are comfortable with. I kind of break New Hampshire up into a few different sections because there's kind of like the western side of the state. I take that into Sullivan County and Cheshire County. Then there's like and that has Keene where I live and all that. It borders Vermont. And then you have like the middle of the state, Hillsborough County and Merrimack County, where basically all the big cities are. You got Concord, then you got Manchester, then you got Nashua. And that's where you're going to find the most amount of stores, the most amount of like diverse food options, and really the most amount of things going on. Then when you move towards the coastline, you got Rockingham County and Stratford County. Now this is like the sea coast. This is where you do have some more expensive homes because there are some more expensive towns over there. You're close to Hampton Beach and the actual 13 miles of coastline that New Hampshire has. And that's definitely one of the higher price points area in New Hampshire. And then you kind of have like the lakes region up by Laconia, which is where Lake Winnipesaukee is and all the big lakes. And then probably once you really get north of that, you got the White Mountains, North Conway and Lincoln. And then north of North Conway and Lincoln, it's really just northern New Hampshire, and there's not a ton of things going up there. So if you're looking to move to New Hampshire and you have northern New Hampshire on your want to move to, I really highly suggest you go there because it's definitely like a different way of life than southern New Hampshire. There's just not nearly as much stuff up there, not nearly as much industry, stores, or anything like that, but it's really good if you want to be just like out in the country, isolated, and just like ride four-wheelers in the woods. So those are the 5 most common questions I wanted to go over. Hopefully, I know they weren't really about one thing, but hopefully they answered some that you might have if you're looking to make the move to New Hampshire, because again, moving states is a huge deal. And like I said, New Hampshire has some really enticing things like no state income or sales tax, but then you get really hit hard on property taxes. So if you have any questions, again, down below in my description, click the link for the buyer's consultation. Even if you're not a buyer right now, we can always just get on a call on that, talk things over, see if New Hampshire would actually be a good fit for you. And if it is, I can always help you find an actual house up here. So I hope this video added some value. If it did, hit that like and subscribe button, and I'll catch you guys next week with another video.